And this is Gene Odom. Tell us who you are, Gene.
Gene Odom, the one and only. Can you? It picks up audio too.
Everything. Video.
That's amazing. Technology is amazing.
So, what'd you think of the show tonight?
It's great.
Well, I want the true story about what Artemis said.
And Artemis says that Ronnie Van Zant got up, walked in the back of the plane, gave me a big hippie handshake. Bullshit. Ronnie Van Zant was on the floor, grogged out. I got him up 3 seconds before he died, shoved him between Alan and Gary, put the pillow in his lap, put his head down. He said, "Man, don't be fucking with me, I got it," and I slapped him. And about the time I slapped him, somebody said, "Trees." And then I tried to run, and bam, hit the ground. Ronnie Van Zant, if he went in the back of the plane, he'd be alive today.
So he wasn't at the back of the plane. He was at the front.
At the front.
He hit a tree.
I'll show you where he's at. The plane, looking down at the plane. Something similar to this. Okay. You
Pilot, co-pilot.
You had the cockpit. Pilot, co-pilot.
Both them guys.
Behind them, on this side, was some instruments, then the bathroom, and then this was some instruments in the galley, a sink. Then there was a bulkhead with a door here. On this side was a couch and a little. It was kind of like that. Might not be that size. And over here was 2 first-class seats and a little, about a 2x2 table, 18 by 18 inch table. Steve was here. Dean Kilpatrick was here.
Neil, Kilpatrick was right. Yeah.
Dean.
Dean.
All right,
Dean and Neil.
at
Dean
the time,
and Steve are right there.
All right, at the time, who's telling the story? Me or you?
You are.
At the time, Gary was here, Alan was here, Kevin Elson, the sound guy, was here. Behind that was 2 airplane seats. 2 airplane seats, all right? 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Back here on this side of the plane was 2 airplane seats, and about a 3x3 table where we played poker. On this side of the plane was 2 seats like Steve and Dean was in here, with a table in between them. Ron Eckerman, Craig Reed was here. I would always sit in one of these seats playing poker. And you couldn't lay down across these 2 seats. And Ronnie had taken 2 sleeping pills because he got one of the girls because he'd been up the night before all night.
Banging,
he said, he slipped away from me. He said, you do it. I said, I'm gonna be this is gonna be hard to do on this end of it. He said, but you're okay. So he said, man, I need to get some sleep. So I said, all right. So, but this couch being here, you only had so much room to walk between the seats. One person, one aisle. If he laid down right here on the floor, under their feet, people could walk through here and go to the galley back and forth and not bump into him. So he laid down that floor, put a pillow in it, and he went sound asleep, grogged out. And Stephen Dean was here. I would sit back here, but when this engine started fucking up and sputtering and running out of gas, I run up to the cockpit and going on, and they were talking to Houston, trying to find vectors back to Macomb, the nearest airport. And then they said, "You having fuel?" Yeah. I said, "No, we're not out of fuel." So the engines would pick up some fuel and run. They said, we're trying to switch fuel tanks. We don't know what's going on. So Houston would say, "Are you low on fuel or are you out of fuel?" So at that time, the engine would quit, and when the engine would actually pick up fuel, it would spin the plane sideways.
Dang, I don't want my phone.
Because of the torque of the horrible nightmare. So as I was going up there talking with him, the plane was, doing this, circling around me. The last time I went up there, because I got everybody strapped in, Ronnie was still on the floor. He was all down, one and 2 sleeping pills. I went back to the pilot. I said, "Hope you two son of bitches live through this so I can kill both of you." But then, as I seen that, the plane did this, lost its airspeed, and I seen the ground coming up so quick. I just grabbed Ronnie, snatched him off the floor. I said, "Get up, man, the plane's crashing." He said, "Don't be fucking with me, man. I gotta get some sleep." I shoved him between Alan and Gary. I grabbed the pillow. I said, "Put your head in." He got back up. He says, "Man, don't be fucking with me. I gotta get some sleep." I said, "Ronnie, the plane's gonna." So I slapped him. If you ever slapped Ronnie Van Zant, you in for a fight. So I had him strapped in tight. I said, "The fucking plane's crashing." About the time I said that, somebody hollered trees, and it started hitting. And so I tried to run, but I was actually trying to run. I didn't realize it. I was actually trying to run uphill at a 52-degree angle because the plane was coming in like that. And so when it crashed and hit the trees back here, it topped these trees out right here. The next trees it hit, it cut them in half. These next trees, it hit the bottom of them big old Mississippi pines, and they didn't move. So it crushed all of this back to here and ripped this apart right here. It was ripped apart.
Fuselage, yeah.
Yeah, and about this section, about from there to here. No, excuse me. This right here, right behind the seats, right in front of the seats. This force of all of this metal, 68,000 pounds, empty, what that plane weighed. This set just crunched into the breeze, did nothing. So it took this part of the plane where Ronnie and these guys were at, right to here, and twisted that up this way. So it put Ronnie and Alan and Gary and Kevin Elson up here, Stephen Dean on the bottom. These seat belts broke, shattered, just broke. So Ronnie come down on top of Stephen Dean, and Stephen Dean was against this bulkhead, backed up against that bulkhead. So the force of the impact and Dean Kilpatrick against that table, against that bulkhead, they had no place to go. So he forced the table into him, crushing both of them here in table injuries. And then Ronnie, Alan, and Gary piled on top of him. Ronnie was on top of Steve and Dean. Dean was already dead. Steve was still alive. Ronnie was knocked unconscious immediately. And then Kevin Elson, Alan, and Gary piled on top of Ronnie. He never had a chance to breathe. He died from asphyxiation. That's what killed him. Once he was knocked unconscious, he never breathed. Never had to take a breath. And then Cassie was in, I think, this next seat here. Leslie and Leon was in these, and maybe Billy Powell was in one of these seats, the front seats. And Leslie had some facial injuries and a fractured neck. Billy just had his nose was banged up, and I think he had a fractured leg. And Cassie, it just whiplashed and broke her neck, just severed her neck. She looked like she was, nothing was wrong. I tried to get back, and I did get back. I didn't get back to my seat, but where the plane came apart at, it was actually back here. And when the impact opened up right here, this tail section went this way. The tail section turned to the right. This tail fin was knocked off back here. This wing was knocked off 50 feet behind the plane back here. This wing was intact, and this engine was intact. This wing and this engine was back here 50 feet behind the crash. When it hit this tree right here, the wing hit here, and this tail section fell right behind it. And the fuselage of the tail section twisted this way. It jettisoned me out underneath this very engine that caused all the problems. So nobody knew I was under there. Knocked completely unconscious and had a massive hole in my head and banged up. So